Hi, I'm Ethan. And this is the story of how my life changed forever on a college trip to Egypt. Sharing a room with Alex, the guy the first couldn't stand, was already a nightmare. But one night, while I was fast asleep, he did something I never expected. And it left me questioning everything I thought I knew about him and myself. What do you think happened? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories that will keep you hooked. The trip to Egypt was supposed to be the highlight of our final year. But for me, it felt like a punishment. Ever since I found out I'd be rooming with Alex, I had been dreading it. Alex, the golden boy of our college, was everything I wasn't: tall, blonde, and athletic. He had a magnetic energy that drew people to him. Meanwhile, I preferred staying in the background, focusing on my studies and avoiding unnecessary drama. From the moment we stepped off the plane in Cairo, the tension between us was palpable. Our professor had paired us as roommates, citing opposite personalities foster growth as her reasoning. I wasn't buying it. Alex had smirked when she made the announcement, clearly amused at my visible discomfort. Our hotel room was modest but charming, with two small beds pushed against opposite walls. The view outside the windows showcased a stunning skyline of ancient mosques and the faint glow of the desert beyond. It should have been a moment of awe, but all I could think about was how I'd survive a week trapped in this space with him. "So, Ethan," Alex said as he tossed his bag onto his bed, "are we going to spend this whole trip pretending we don't exist? Or are we actually going to try and get along?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I busied myself unpacking, hoping he'd drop the conversation. But Alex wasn't the type to let things go. "Look, I get it," he continued. "You think I'm some cocky jock who only cares about myself. But maybe, just maybe, there's more to me than you think." His words caught me off guard. Was he serious? I glanced at him, trying to gauge his expression. But his easy grin gave nothing away. "Let's just get through the week without killing each other," I muttered, finally, breaking the silence. "Deal," he said, his grin widening. The first couple of days passed in a blur of sightseeing and lectures. We visited the pyramids of Giza, marveled at the Sphinx, and explored the bustling streets of Cairo. Despite my initial reluctance, I couldn't deny that Alex was surprisingly easy to be around. He had a way of making people laugh, even in the most mundane situations. Still, I kept my guard up. I couldn't shake the feeling that his friendliness was part of some elaborate game. But everything changed on the third night. Exhausted from a day of hiking through ancient ruins, I collapsed onto my bed and fell asleep almost instantly. Sometime in the middle of the night, I stirred awake. The room was dark, but I could feel Alex's presence close by. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard him whisper something under his breath, so softly I couldn't make out the words. My heart raced as I lay there, eyes closed, unsure of what to do. And then I felt it, a gentle touch on my arm. I stayed perfectly still, my heart pounding as Alex's touch lingered for a moment before he pulled away. I didn't dare open my eyes, unsure if I wanted to confront him or even acknowledge what had just happened. The air in the room felt heavy, and for a moment, I wondered if I had imagined it all. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Alex rummaging through his bag. He seemed his usual self, humming to a tune stuck in his head. I couldn't tell if he knew I'd been awake or if he thought I had slept through whatever had happened. "Big day today," Alex said, flashing me a grin. "We're heading to Luxor, right? Can't wait to check out the Valley of the Kings." I nodded, forcing myself to act normal, though my mind was spinning. Had I overreacted? Maybe he'd just been checking if I was okay. But then why the whispering? The bus ride to Luxor was long, and I found myself sitting beside Alex again, thanks to our professor's insistence on alphabetical seating. He spent most of the ride talking animatedly with the group around us, cracking jokes, and sharing random facts he'd picked up about Egypt. At one point, he turned to me. "You're awfully quiet today. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just tired," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. He raised an eyebrow as if he didn't quite believe me. But thankfully, he let it go. The day passed in a whirlwind of tours and history lessons. The ancient tombs were breathtaking. And for a while, I managed to push the previous night's events out of my mind. Alex, to my surprise, seemed genuinely fascinated by the history, asking questions and engaging with our guide. It was a side of him I hadn't seen before, curious, thoughtful, and dare I say, endearing. By the time we returned to the hotel, I was physically and emotionally drained. After a quick shower, I collapsed onto my bed, ready to sleep and avoid any awkward encounters. But just as I was about to drift off, Alex's voice broke the silence. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" I turned to look at him. He was sitting on his bed, his expression unusually serious. "Sure," I said cautiously. "Why do you hate me?" The question caught me off guard. "What? I don't hate you." "Really? Because it feels like you do," he said, his blue eyes locking onto mine. "You barely talk to me unless you have to. And even then, it's like you're counting the seconds until you can walk away." I hesitated, unsure how to respond. It wasn't that I hated him, I just didn't understand him. Alex had always seemed so untouchable, so out of reach. He was the kind of guy everyone admired. And I'd assumed he didn't have time for someone like me. "I don't hate you," I repeated, my voice softer this time. "I guess I just thought you wouldn't care to get to know me." Alex frowned, his gaze thoughtful. "That's not true. I've always noticed you, Ethan. You just never gave me a chance." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Before I could process what he was saying, he stood up and turned off the lights. "Good night, Ethan," he said quietly, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I lay there in the dark, replaying the conversation in my head, I realized that maybe I'd been wrong about Alex. Maybe there was more to him than I'd allowed myself to see. But then why had he touched me the night before? The tension between Alex and me hung in the air the next morning as we joined the group for breakfast. His words from the night before kept echoing in my mind. "I've always noticed you." It wasn't just what he said, it was the way he said it. His voice softer, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. I found myself watching him more closely that day, studying the way he carried himself. It wasn't hard to see why people liked him. He was charismatic, effortlessly charming, and his laugh had this contagious energy that made everyone around him smile. But there were moments when he'd drift into silence, his gaze distant, and I couldn't help but wonder what he was thinking. Our itinerary that day included a boat ride along the Nile. The group was buzzing with excitement as we boarded, snapping photos of the glittering water and the lush green banks. Alex and I ended up sitting together again, More out of habit than choice. You're quiet again, he said after a while, leaning closer so I could hear him over the chatter. Just taking it all in, I replied, avoiding his gaze. He didn't push, which surprised me. Instead, he stretched out his legs and tilted his head back to soak up the sun. For a moment, he looked so at ease, so unguarded, that I felt a strange pang in my chest. You know, he said suddenly, I don't think I've ever seen you this distracted. Usually, you're all business. I glanced at him, unsure how to respond. Before I could come up with something, the boat jolted slightly, causing me to lose my balance. Instinctively, I reached out to steady myself, and my hand landed on his thigh. The contact was brief, but it sent a jolt through me. I pulled back quickly, mumbling an apology, but Alex didn't seem fazed. If anything, he looked amused. You okay there? He asked, his lips twitching into a small smirk. Fine, I said, my cheeks burning. The rest of the ride passed uneventfully, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. Later that evening, back in our hotel room, the atmosphere felt different. Alex was quieter than usual, his playful energy replaced by something more subdued. We sat on our respective beds, scrolling through our phones in silence. I thought about saying something, breaking the awkwardness, but I didn't know where to start. And then, out of nowhere, Alex spoke. Do you ever think about what comes next? I looked up, confused. What do you mean? After college, he said, setting his phone aside. What we're going to do? Who we're going to be? If we'll still talk to the people we know now? The question caught me off guard. I hadn't given much thought to life after graduation. Too focused on just getting through the present. I don't know, I admitted. I guess I haven't really thought about it. Alex nodded, his gaze distant again. Sometimes, I feel like I don't even know who I am. You know, like I've spent so much time being what everyone expects, that I've forgotten what I actually want. His words hit closer to home than I cared to admit. I'd always assumed Alex had everything figured out, but hearing him speak like this made him feel human. You're not alone in that, I said quietly. I think most of us feel that way. We're all just trying to figure it out for the first time. Alex smiled, an actual genuine smile that lit up his face. Thanks, Ethan, he said, his voice soft. I mean it. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about him. For the first time, I started to see Alex not as the cocky guy I'd built up in my head but as someone real. Someone who might be just as lost as I was. I was starting to feel something I couldn't quite explain, and it scared me. The fourth night of our trip was unlike any other. After another long day of exploring ancient sites, the group gathered for dinner at a local restaurant near the hotel. The warm breeze carried the scent of spices, and the soft hum of traditional Egyptian music played in the background. Everyone was laughing and chatting, but I couldn't stop glancing at Alex. Something about him felt different tonight. Maybe it was the way he laughed a little less, or how his gaze lingered on me longer than usual. I wasn't sure. But it unsettled me. Back at the hotel, Alex and I retreated to our room. The tension between us had become impossible to ignore, like an unspoken conversation hanging in the air. I tried to focus on my book, but my mind kept wandering to the way his voice softened when he said my name earlier that evening. Alex broke the silence first. You're really into that book? Huh? I looked up, startled. Yeah, it's interesting. He smirked, leaning back against the headboard of his bed. You always have an escape plan, don't you? Books, headphones, anything to keep people at arm's length. His words stung, mostly because they were true. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, defensive. It means I see you. Ethan, he said, his tone serious now. You act like you don't care. Like none of this matters. But I don't buy it. I stared at him, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to deny it. But the other part, the part that had started to see him differently, wanted to hear more. Why do you care? I asked quietly. Alex hesitated, his blue eyes locking onto mine. For a moment, it looked like he was struggling to find the right words. Because I know what it's like to feel like you're always on the outside looking in. His admission caught me off guard. I had always seen Alex as the guy who had it all. Friends, confidence, a magnetic personality. Hearing him admit to feeling isolated shattered that image. Is that why you try so hard to be you? I asked, gesturing vaguely. He laughed softly. Maybe. Or maybe it's just easier to be what people want me to be than to figure out who I really am. His honesty was disarming. For the first time, I felt like we were on equal footing. Like the walls between us were starting to crumble. The conversation shifted after that, becoming more personal, more raw. Alex talked about his struggles with living up to expectations, while I admitted my fears of being invisible, of never being enough. At some point, the room grew quiet again. But it wasn't the awkward silence we'd shared before, it was comfortable. Almost intimate. Then, Alex said something that stopped my heart. You know, I think I like you. Ethan. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard him right. What? He sat up, running a hand through his blonde hair. Clearly nervous. I mean it. I like you. And I think I've been trying to tell you in a lot of little ways. But I wasn't sure if you'd ever notice. I stared at him, my mind racing. The memories came flooding back, his lingering looks, his teasing, the way he'd touched my arm that first night. It all made sense now. I don't know what to say. I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to say anything. Alex replied, his voice steady but soft. Just think about it. The weight of his confession hung between us as he turned off the lights and climbed into bed. I lay awake for hours, replaying his words over and over, my chest tight with a mix of confusion and something else. Something I wasn't ready to name yet. I didn't sleep that night. Alex's words replayed in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. I like you. Ethan. It was the first time anyone had said something like that to me. Direct, raw, and completely disarming. But it wasn't just his words, it was the way he said them. Like he had been holding them in for far too long. When morning came, the tension in the room was palpable. We avoided each other's gaze as we got ready for another day of sightseeing. I wanted to say something, to acknowledge what had happened, but every time I opened my mouth, the words wouldn't come. As the day went on, the group visited the Temple of Karnak, a breathtaking sight with towering columns and intricate carvings. Normally, I would have been in awe, but I couldn't focus. Alex stayed close to me, his presence a constant reminder of the confession hanging between us. At one point, while the guide was explaining the history of the temple, Alex leaned in close. Are you okay? He asked, his voice low enough that only I could hear. I nodded, but I couldn't meet his eyes. I'm fine, he sighed, clearly frustrated. "Ethan, we can't just ignore this." "Not here," I whispered back, glancing at the group around us. That evening, back at the hotel, I knew we couldn't keep avoiding the conversation. After dinner, I sat on the edge of my bed, my heart pounding as Alex closed the door behind him. "Let's talk," he said, sitting across from me. I hesitated, unsure where to start. "Why now, Alex? Why tell me this here? On this trip?" He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd started to notice. Because I couldn't keep pretending. I thought maybe if I said nothing, it would go away. But being here with you, sharing this experience, it just made everything clearer. "Clearer how?" I asked, my voice trembling. "That I don't just like you, Ethan. I think I'm falling for you." His words hit me like a tidal wave. I had spent so long convincing myself that Alex was just an arrogant guy who didn't care about anyone but himself. But now, as he sat there looking at me with such vulnerability, I realized how wrong I'd been. "I don't know if I can give you what you want," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "I'm not asking for anything," he said softly. "I just need to know if there's a chance. If you feel even a fraction of what I feel." The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. I could feel the weight of his gaze, the hope and fear in his eyes. "I don't know," I said honestly. I've never thought about this before. About someone like you." "Someone like me?" he echoed, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You know what I mean," I said, my cheeks flushing. Alex stood and walked over to me, closing the distance between us. He knelt in front of me, his hands resting lightly on my knees. "Ethan, I don't need you to have all the answers right now. I just need you to let yourself feel." "Can you do that?" I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of doubt. But all I saw was sincerity. Slowly, I nodded. "I can try." His smile was soft but full of relief. "That's all I need." That night, as we sat together in the dimly lit room, talking about everything and nothing, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was the start of something. Something real. The next morning, everything felt different. Alex and I had crossed an invisible line, and there was no going back. As we explored the ancient temples, he stayed close, his touch lingering on my arm whenever he got the chance. That evening, as we packed our bags for the journey home, Alex looked at me and asked, "What happens when we get back?" I hesitated but then smiled. "We'll figure it out," he grinned, pulling me into a hug that felt like a promise. For the first time, I wasn't scared of what came next. What did you think of Ethan and Alex's journey? Have you ever had a connection you didn't expect? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more heart-stopping stories like this one.